It's time for Journey to a Healthy Life with Dr. Tiffany Keenan. The journey to health and wellness is different for everyone. Let's listen in as Dr. Keenan interviews guests about their journeys and experts that help along the way. Here's Dr. Tiffany Keenan.
Hi, Rainer.
Hi.
I'm here, everyone, today with Rainer Ward, a good friend of mine. And today, Rainer and I are just going to talk a little bit about his journey of health, the experiences that he's learned along the way. And the hopes is that maybe perhaps others may learn a little bit from your journey and your experiences. How are you doing?
I'm doing really, really well.
Wonderful. So, Rainer, I'm just going to kind of give it to you. And just if you can just start by telling us a little bit about maybe your upbringing and a little bit of your journey.
Okay. Well, I kind of didn't really prepare anything, but I was thinking about it all the way down. It's been quite a journey when I think about kind of what's happened and what I'm kind of going through and what I've been through. I grew up in a big family, a big Mi'kmaq family, you know. We like to eat. We are all emotional eaters, and food is really, really kind of central to our life. And I know for myself, I became an emotional eater at a young age. I was obese at a very young age, and it really caused a lot of difficulties in my life with self-esteem, with confidence, with believing I could really accomplish anything. So I kind of had this idea of myself, of what I was, and it really didn't serve me for the majority of my life. And I know that I struggled with obesity for pretty much my entire life. You know, I struggled with binge eating and food addiction, and I just really wasn't in a good place. And I was diagnosed with diabetes when I was about 27, and for a year I didn't do anything about it. I went through what I call my diabetes denial, and I just said, you know, the heck with it. I'm probably going to die anyway. A lot of people in my family have diabetes, and I've seen the really, really negative effects of it, and I just said it was a foregone conclusion, and I really didn't think that I could get any better. So for about a year, I just went through this kind of reckless abandon, and I didn't care about what happened to me, and the behavior was very, very destructive. I didn't think about my future. I wasn't thinking about, you know, getting healthy or kind of what my next steps would be. It was just, it is what it is. And there were no programs in place for me to kind of learn about it or get better. And I felt really alone. The disease of diabetes and obesity is really, really, there's a big sense of isolation, and an addict already pushes everyone away. So I kind of dealt with this on my own. And for a lot of people when they're going through addiction, and I do call food addiction an addiction, because the way I eat is compulsively, and it's bad and it's obsessive, and I know that I use food as a coping mechanism where a lot of people might turn to drinking or drugs, or I kind of really have a negative relationship with food. So for me, when I got to this really, really bad place, I didn't have a way out, and what I was using for my comfort was hurting me. Like I said, I'm a binge eater, and so with a binge eater, it's very, very negative and depressing, and you have suicidal thoughts around it. And for a drug addict or an alcoholic, they go out and they pursue their addiction, and they have a high for a while, and there's a little bit of happiness. And, you know, for a binge eater, it's, you go out, you binge, and then immediately you feel so sick and you feel so awful, and the resentment and depression and self-loathing kicks in. And for me, addiction is really, it's misery and it's pain. And if we want to talk about coping mechanisms and the things that I use to deal with my misery and my pain, it was food, and it got me to a really, really bad place. At my biggest, I got on a scale at the hospital. I was going down south for a family trip, and I wanted to get an extra plane seat. And so in order to do that, I had to get weighed, and I had to get my butt measured. So they had a big enough measuring tape, but they didn't have a big enough scale. At the hospital, they had a 600-pound scale, and I got on it, and it didn't read. And that was really, really scary for me to know that at one point in my life I was over 600 pounds. And I'm thankful that I'm 6'5" and I'm a tall guy. And everyone always tells me, I never saw you as that big. And it was really, really evident in the way I looked. I had dark circles under my eyes. I had darkening in my around my neck and my arms, and that happens with diabetes. And I just looked really, really bad. And I remember I had to lose weight to get down to 585 pounds for the scale to read. So the biggest weight I ever saw on the scale was 585 pounds. And at one point I was over 600. So I lived this kind of life of, it was beyond morbid obesity, it was super obese. And I was really kind of putting myself towards an early grave. And I tried all kinds of things my entire life. I can't tell you how many fights I've had with my mother and my family and all these people who want you to be well and want you to be healthy, but if you don't care about yourself and can't do it for yourself, there's no point, right? So I got to go to a program for diabetes. I got really scared. My depression and anxiety and all these things were really taking off, and I got really scared, and someone told me it was diabetes related. So I went to the diabetes journey as put on by the Diabetes Initiative for First Nations people. And I went and I learned all about diabetes, and I started trying to manage it. The first thing I did was quit all sugar drinks, and I lost 30 pounds just doing that. And I kind of got a better feel about it, and I came home and I started trying to cut my sugar down. I was on meds, and I was on insulin, metformin. There's another, I think, something like that.
Januvia.
I was on 3 different types of blood pressure medication too, or the 3rd level of it, because they put me on it, and they put me on it, they put me on it. So I was on all kinds of meds, and the meds really were making me feel almost just as bad as the disease. Like, they were really, really hard on my system. I had an upset stomach every day. I really felt like somebody was squeezing me, and like my eyes were going to pop out, and it was really bad. I hated pricking myself with the needle, and really the effects of it didn't even work all that much, because it would really only get my sugar down to a more stable level, but still not at the right level. So after about a year of trying this out, I got to a place where I was still really, really sick. I was having a lot of diabetes-related issues. I was having bladder infections and an eye infection, and I had a cold that lasted for about 6 weeks. And finally, I decided to go into the ER, and thankful I did, because that's where I met you. I went to the ER, and I remember Dr. Keenan was there, and she told me, "Mr. Ward, you're a very sick man." And I was like, obviously, I had a real bad attitude about it too. And she said, "Have you ever thought about trying low carb to treat your diabetes?" And I said, "No, and I said, "Oh, is that keto? Is that?" And she goes, "Yes." And I said, "No, I'm diabetic. I can't do keto." And I'll remember the words as clearly as it happened, like it happened. You said, "If you do keto, you'll reverse your diabetes." And I remember thinking that you were a crazy person. And I thought to myself, you can't reverse diabetes. There's no way to do that. That's impossible. If that was known, everyone would do it, you know? And I went home, and it's, we always change for weird reasons. And sometimes instead of our better health, we change for selfish reasons. I emceed my cousin's wedding the next couple days. And I remember I was so excited to be in a tuxedo, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be looking good. I'm going to be feeling good." And I put that tuxedo on, and I saw pictures of myself, and I looked so big and so sick and bad that it sent me like into a spiral depression. So I said, "Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this keto out." And I took a stress leave from work. I took a month's stress leave, and I basically locked myself in my basement, and I detoxed from sugar.
How was that?
It was insane. I like to call myself the world's #1 sugar addict, candy addict. Like I always had something. I was always snacking on something, and
Like
it was
gummies or those sorts
gummies,
of things.
chocolate, everything, and any kind. And I was really, really like in big quantities, and my sugar was just out of control. So I really just went and I bought myself all the groceries that would align with this diet. I started eating this diet, and
Like vegetables and
yeah,
just healthy
so I
foods,
bought
right?
I
Yeah.
bought protein, vegetables, healthy fats, all these things that go with a low carb diet. So I cut out sugar, potatoes, rice, noodles, wheat, all these things that were really, really making me sick. And I thought they were, I always had this concept of what was healthy food or what was nourishing or this or that. And for me and my body, it really didn't do me any benefit. In fact, it was killing me. So when I went through this, I went through a sugar withdrawal. Like every night, I would be kind of sweating and I would feel sick, and my head felt like it was gonna pop for about 3 weeks. I felt really, really sick, and every night I would wait for the store on the res to close. And it's funny, I told someone that Cloud's Convenience was my drug dealer because that was my drug of choice, was my food, and I really, really sweated it out. And after about 3 weeks, I kind of came to, and in the first little while, I dropped a lot of weight really quick. Like I dropped inflammation and swelling, and I know my body was holding on to a lot of things that it didn't need to because of how sick I was. So I saw improvements right away. Right away, my insulin dose had to come down. Right away, my all my meds had to come down, and I was really, really happy about that because I started feeling better. And within that month I took my stress leave, it was like a complete turnaround. My anxiety went away, my depression went away, my feelings of fear of people, like all these things that I really, really held on to, I just kind of let go of them, and I started on this new path. And within a short amount of time, everything really, really did a 360. And I'm very, very happy that coincidentally I went into the ER that day and you happened to be my doctor. And since I've done this kind of low carb, reduced sugar journey, like I said, I was at my biggest. I was over 600 pounds, and now I'm just around 430. And I've lost altogether in about 2.5 years, I've lost 170 pounds.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together